Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today we've got a Getting Started with Warhammer Age of Sigmar video for you, and today we're going to be looking at the Nighthaunt, and in particular looking at the sub-faction Ragnarok Condemned. In this video we're going to aim to show you how you can start an army up of this particular force using its thematic rules to create a force that's situated around what this sub-faction is trying to get you to play. So with that in mind, we will be including a lot of stuff about Reiknor the Grim Hailer, because this is his personal sub-faction within Nighthaunt, and we'll go through exactly what we get with this army in the video, and a little briefly, and then we'll look at the units you should pick up first to start off your force, some units you can expand your force with, and finally a little sample 1,000 point army list at the end of the video to sort of aim towards and give you an idea of how you can build up this sort of army. So with that said, what do we get exactly from playing Ragnarok Condemned? Well, as mentioned, it's a Nighthaunt sub-faction, and it is Reiknor the Grim Hailer's personal sub-faction. This is his troop. It focuses heavily on buffing up Chain Rasp and Glaive Wraith Stalker units, two of the more hoardy sorts of units, though Chain Rasp definitely much more with 10 minimum units, so they can be increased to 20 or 30 using your reinforcement points. And Glaive Wraith Stalkers are much smaller units in general, being 4 models, but can be taken in plentiful amounts, as they are only like 60 points for 4 models, so some great sort of chaff and useful toolbox units to have around the place. The main buffing pieces for this army uses Spirit Torments and Chain Gusts, which normally provide reroll 1s to hit for your Chain Rasp Horde if they're nearby, but instead in Ragnarok Condemned they will provide rerolls to hit flat, which is pretty darn awesome. On top of that, you'll get a Guardian of Soul, which will get some nice buffs, where each time you use either the Temporal Translocation or Spectral Lure spell from a Guardian of Soul, you can return a D6 model to the unit that has it cast on it, so pretty cool. This army, as you might expect, with the Chain Rasp Horde and all those sort of buffs, this is really going to focus on having a Horde Nighthaunt list. So lots of bodies on the table with large units of Chain Rasps and lots of other models throughout your list. It's got some other cool abilities, things like the Death Comes Swiftly command ability, where you can use this command ability to start a movement phase. You pick one friendly Chain Rasp Horde or Glaive Wraith Stalkers that's held within 12 inch of Condemned Hero or 18 inch of a Ragnarok Condemned General, and add 6 inch to the movement of that unit, so you can really get hordes to be quite fast. So with that all said, exactly where should we start with Ragnarok Condemned? And so, where to begin? Well, it's easy to get started with Reiknor the Grim Hailer. What's actually cool about a ton of the Nighthaunt models is they are easy to build models, so this means not only are they easy to build, as you would expect with the name, but they also come at a discounted cost, and Reiknor in Australia even is only $55, which is extremely cheap for a character of his ilk. That's about the same sort of price that we pay for most Stormcast heroes or Space Marine heroes by comparison for a much larger hero. But what do you get with Ragnarok the Grim Hailer? Well, you get a fast 14-inch flying ethereal dude on with 7 wounds. He's got his Fell Reaper, which is 4 attacks at 3s, rend 1, damage 2. And if he ever rolls a 6 to hit with one of his attacks with the Fell Reaper, he'll do 2 mortal wounds instead of normal damage. He's a wizard that can attempt to cast and dispel 1 spell each phase, but his cool rule is really the Corpse Candles rule, where in your hero phase before this model attempts to cast a spell, you can say it will snuff out a Corpse Candle. If you do so, pick either this model or an enemy model within 12 inch. That model suffers 1 mortal wound on 1 mortal wound. If the mortal wound was suffered by an enemy model, you add 1 to the casting roll. If the mortal wound was suffered by Reiknor himself, you get 3 to your casting roll. So you can get some nice cool bonuses to your attacks there. You also get to reroll failed hit rolls with Fell Reaper, his main weapon, if you target units with 5 or more models, and he's got his own War Scroll spell, Wraith Storm, which has a casting value of 7. If successfully cast, you pick an enemy unit within 12 inches of the caster invisible to them. That unit will suffer D3 mortal wounds, and if any models in the unit are slain as a result, they'll suffer an additional D3 mortal wounds to the unit. Of course, we want to start with Chain Rasps. Chain Rasps definitely are the better battle line units you start with, or rather core units to start with, rather than our Glaive Wraith Stalkers. Chain Rasps come in much larger units. They just take on a bunch of the buffs from the sub-faction really, really well. Chain Rasps don't really have an awful lot they offer, really, outside of a couple of little buffs to the units that they can get with the Chilling Horde, where they can reroll wound rolls of 1 for the unit whilst it has 10 or more models, which is pretty nice. When you consider we're going to talk about taking a Spirit Torment. Now, if you're looking for a Spirit Torment on the Games Workshop website, you'll need to look up a model called Crawlock the Jailer. This will contain your Spirit Torment and your Chain Gas in the one box for you. So you can pair the Spirit Torment, which is going to give us rerolls to hit flat in this particular Reiknor sub-faction here in the Condemned. So those Chain Rasps are going to be rerolling to hit, rerolling ones to wound, whilst they're over 10 models in the unit, and they are near either the Spirit Torment or the Chain Ghast. Where to go next though? Well, we're going to look at the Glaive Wraith Stalkers. Now, they are not a battle line option, and this is generally why I suggest taking Chain Rasps first, because Glaive Wraith Stalkers aren't battle line. They do have a wound each on a 4-up save, which is pretty solid, so they've got a little bit better save than your Chain Rasp. And the Point of Death is their special rule where they can reroll all failed hit rolls for attacks made with this unit's Hunter's Glaive in the turn they charge. Now, this is not necessarily the greatest, but it does provide them some good Vanguard unit rules and also some nice options for your army to have units outside the range of your Chain Rasp or your Chain Ghast and your Spirit Torment. Also coming in 4 models for a nice cheap little points cost. They are really solid. They don't require many points to take. They can be nice little units floating around, grabbing objectives, holding yours, threatening opposing characters. A good solid little unit. I like sort of throwing in a unit or two just to do a couple of things throughout the army. Now, of course, Chain Ghast are where you want to go next, and we've talked about Crawlock the Jailer and the box set on how you get your Chain Ghast, but definitely bringing them into your force at this point is a good option. And the Guardian of Souls is definitely a model we want to look to bring into our Nighthaunt army with Ragnarok Condemned, because he's just got so much potential here. I like to use him as a general so we can bring back even more models. We'll talk about that in the army list at the end, but he just brings back so many models a turn, which is just amazing when you consider we're going to be focusing this army on having large blocks of Chain Rasp Horde. A Dreadblade Harrow is my last option to pick up for this army. It does sort of cover some of the speed issues. While you do have the command trait, this can allow you to fast move one unit and then bring another unit across the table with a Spectral Endeavor, teleporting a unit around near your Dreadblade Harrow. Now, normally Nighthaunt units have to teleport near the general, and if the Dreadblade Harrow is ever your general, he actually has his own free teleport once per game, so he can teleport where he wants and then summon a unit to him, which is pretty darn cool. So this just gives you a lot of potential for throwing units where your opponent may not expect them to be. With that all said though, we're going to look at a little sample army list of 1,000 points of how to play Ragnarok Condemned on the tabletop, so let's get cracking. And so here we have a sample 1,000 point army list for the Ragnarok Condemned Nighthaunt army. Predator's Domain is a fantastic grand strategy for this army. We've got lots of little small units we can use to just sort of swarm over the table, and the fact our units don't die are generally a good point. Bloodthirsty for the Triumph is just a must. If you're playing Nighthaunt and you're taking a Triumph, Bloodthirsty is always what you go with. You want those rerollable charges to try and get those big 10-inch charges to attack in the charge phase. And of course, we've got Ragnarok Condemned. Now, he has a cool rule where he's our general in addition to any other general we have in the army. So he's got all the cool rules for a general, and so he can have Law of the Underworld's Soul Cage. This is a movement debilitating spell. It's going to hurt our opponent's ability to move around the tabletop. We then have our Spirit Torment in the army as well, and a Guardian of Souls with Nightmare Lantern, who will be our general. He's going to have the command trait Rule of Spirit Host. This allows him to return more models to a unit nearby him, and he's got the artifact Corpse Candle, which he can use to snuff out people's wounds and stuff like that across the table. It's an artifact we must take with the first hero we give an artifact to, so gonna have to take it here. But he's also got Shade Mist, which is -1 to wound, which is just a fantastic spell. Minuses to wound and all of that are just great no matter what. For our battle line, 2 units of 10 Chain Rasp or 20 Chain Rasp Horde are going to use both our reinforcement points and just be really the big solid core of our army. We're going to stick the Spirit Torment, our Guardian of Souls, and of course our Chain Ghast behind them, and they're really just going to hopefully do a lot of work for our Chain Rasp Horde, just putting through those weight of attacks. On 25mm bases as well, we're going to be able to get lots of them into combat while remaining in coherency. For other units, we've got 2 units of 4 Glaive Wraith Stalkers and the 2 Chain Ghasts, as already mentioned. The Glaive Wraith Stalkers just work well as nice little other units because we've got a lot of power focused in those Chain Rasp Horde. These 2 units of Glaive Wraith Stalkers can go around, grab objectives, do battle tactics, and all that sort of stuff that we need to do. So a really, really useful unit for the army to have. What's cool is the army is 5 units and 3 characters, so it perfectly fits inside a battle regiment for a 1-drop Nighthaunt list at 1,000 points, or rather, just under at 970, so there's a good chance you're going to get that bloodthirsty command trait. You could also use these glaive wraiths as good threat pieces down in the ground as well, bury them in the underworlds and bring them up. This can be great to get rid of little 5-wound heroes and small little chaff units or artillery pieces that leave themselves exposed, as you can charge in your glaive wraith stalkers out of the underground and potentially use the bloodthirsty reroll there if you've got indeed the triumph. As mentioned, 970 points, 2 reinforced units and no allies, 1 drop and 69 wounds, which is pretty solid for this sort of sized army in the game at this points cost. If you've been playing Nighthaunt and Ragnarok Condemned, let us know how you're going and what you're doing with the army on the tabletop. Love to hear from everyone in the comments below. Well, that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment below and let us know what you enjoyed about the video. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel and turn those bell notifications on so you don't miss a beat when we upload new stuff to the channel. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel in another way, you can do so either by helping support the channel on Patreon or YouTube members. This allows us to continue to make new content for the channel, exploring other game systems outside of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, like we have started to with things like Elder Scrolls: A Call to Arms and Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings and Warhammer 40,000, and it helps us just continue to make more Age of Sigmar content as well. Thank you to, though, everyone who has helped support, and we'd like to give them all a shout out to our patrons. First of all, Christian Weir, James Soren, Greenskins Gaming, AJC, Kenny Lowe, Outer and Shop First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Anton Nilsson, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater, and Samuel. And to our YouTube members as well, Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Chris Wallace, Ronya, Vinny Locklorick, The Journey 84, David Ellsworth, Revenar, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Sean Scott, and Diplomat. And a special thank you, of course, to, first of all, Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork for the channel you see here, and to Xmorphic, who does all the awesome background work on our Discord server, keeping that nice and running properly for us all. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Once again, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against Grey. Ciao for now.